with women who are entrepreneurs, highlighting the fact that women are the backbone of our economy, obviously having been the first female governor of Rhode Island, and being here with my dear friend, the first female vice president of the country. This is giving me tingles. It's incredible. You know, for so long, women have fought to have a place at the table, and we're setting the agenda. Now we are at the table, at the highest levels, and setting the agenda. And we're here to hear from each of you today about your businesses. As the Vice President has said, the exodus of women from the workforce really is an emergency. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during COVID. That's like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime, nothing we've seen in our lifetimes. It is an emergency, and we know why. Women were clustered in service industries, low-wage industries that got hit hardest in the pandemic. When schools and child care centers closed, women stayed home to take care of the kids. And women-owned businesses, small businesses, got hit the hardest. So now we find ourselves in a place where we have to build back better and really be there for women so that when we stand this economy back up, we stand it up with job training for women, access to capital for women-owned businesses, and investments in the care economy. And thank God we have a president and a vice president who understand that infrastructure isn't just bricks and mortar. It's investments in child care, pre-K, home care, the care economy, which is essential for people and women to go to work. I get such a kick out of it when people say to me, do you think investments in the care economy are essential? Well, how do you think I'm at work today? How can you go to work if you don't have child care and care for your elderly mom or dad or someone? So, not to mention the tens of millions of women working in the care economy, working full-time, doing important work, making so little that they're working in poverty. And so we are committed to getting the President's jobs package passed, including the $400 billion of investment in the care economy. Now, obviously, I am honored to have the Vice President here. She's no stranger to Rhode Island, although the last time we had you here was a few years ago. We have had a fantastic day today. We were at Social Enterprise Greenhouse earlier. We heard for some small social enterprises there. But I would just say, having you at the highest levels gives me a great deal of hope, because there are hard decisions to be made. How do we prioritize? And with Vice President Harris in the room, at the table, when these decisions are being made, we know women's issues and the issues of female-run small businesses will be front and center. Trust me, and she will make your voices heard at the highest levels. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And I just want to say to Rhode Island, thank you for so many things, including the Secretary, Ms. Gina Raimondo, and your former governor. I worked with her before when she was governor. I am so excited to doing the work we're doing together. As you being the Secretary of Commerce, having a leader who is the Secretary of Commerce who understands business, who understands people, who understands local government, state government, understands the impact and the influence of the federal government, especially at this moment in time, as we attempt to see our way out of the depths of this pandemic. To have Gina Raimondo in this position of leadership as the Secretary of Commerce is so important to our nation. So thank you, Rhode Island, for that. Listen, we, as the Secretary said, we have seen devastation across the board take place over the last year and some months because of the pandemic. But in many ways, the pandemic was an accelerator. It accelerated for those for whom things were bad and made it worse. It accelerated certain inevitabilities that were based on the failures and the fissures of our systems. And so, predictably, we saw that among those who suffered the most, women were among that group. And for the reasons that the Secretary has mentioned, when we look at the fact that women are disproportionately more likely to be the caregivers in a family of not only children but elderly relatives. And then the pandemic, of course, highlighted the fact that our children could not go to school and they would be at home, and so that's where their mothers needed to be. With elderly relatives, what needed to happen in terms of the particular care, especially because so many of them had to be isolated and therefore did not have the ability to go out of a home, to go out of where they live, to meet their basic needs. And so we saw almost 2 million women leave the workforce during the course of the pandemic, highlighting a number of issues. That includes also understanding that you combine that with the fact that when you lift up the economic status of women, you lift up the economic status of families, and all of society benefits. Then, the point of the desperate impact on a particular woman, one must understand how that can extend itself to the impact on families and all of society. So that is the lens through which we look at this issue. And for the President, for our administration, for the Secretary, focusing on small businesses has been very purposeful and intentional when we think about recovering but also growing our economy. Half of America's workforce works for a small business or runs a small business. So, and then we also know that 1/3 of small businesses here in Rhode Island and nationally went out of business because of the pandemic. So as we attempt to get through the worst of the pandemic, get folks back on their feet, it is also our intention to address the long-standing failures of our systems in a way that we support women-owned small businesses, understanding that impact which is profound on all of society. So we're here to talk about small businesses, and we are here to talk about women-owned small businesses and what it means to be a woman running a small business, so that as we move forward, we can incorporate all of the intentions of not only the American Rescue Plan, but the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan in a way that we address longstanding challenges, but also that we address the potential and the opportunity that is present when we look at how women-owned small businesses run and function and contribute to their communities. So with that, I thank you all, and I turn it back over to the Secretary to moderate our conversation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this afternoon, we hope to have a free-flowing conversation and to hear from you, your struggles and also opportunities. But before we do that, I'd like to give each of you a chance to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business. So we'll start with you, Minnie. Tell us about Chai Kitchen Foods.
Thank you, and it's so great to be here with both of you and other female business owners here in Rhode Island. My name is Minnie Leung. I am the founder and CEO of Chai Kitchen. We are the only company in the United States that is focused solely on Asian-flavored fermented vegetables, and we manufacture all of our products in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Oh. And I will say it is delicious, best kimchi you'll have.
Thank you.
So good. Cheryl, tell us about Far Sounder.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you, Madam Vice President, for this opportunity. I am Cheryl Zimmerman, the CEO of a highly innovative company here headquartered in Rhode Island. It's Far Sounder. We are the developers and manufacturers of a very unique 3D sonar technology, which we use for maritime applications, including transportation and navigation safety. That's our main focus. Our unique patented technology paints a picture ahead of your ships, under the water, so you can see obstacles before you have an accident. They're for avoiding ecological issues with oil spills and hurting the vessels themselves, and of course for the human lives and marine life to protect those. And we look out over 1,000 meters ahead of the vessel, and we develop all our products here in Rhode Island. And when you fly out this evening, you can look over Narragansett Bay and you'll see our laboratory, which we do many of our experiments there. So we do all work locally, yet we think globally, with exporting 85% approximately of our products. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl's an engineer by training,
Yeah.
which is a reminder to all of us that we need to invest in STEM education and make sure that it is in our public school system so it is available to boys and girls and people from every zip code, every walk of life, every area code, so that these opportunities can be available to everybody. Jennifer, tell us about
Hello.
the fabulous Beehive.
My name is Jen Cavallaro, and I own a restaurant, the Beehive Cafe in Bristol. And about a mile away, still in Bristol, I opened a bakery. The cafe opened in 2007, the bakery in 2015. And I'm just very happy to be here to talk about my businesses and to hear what you have to say, too.
We're happy
Thank
to be
you.
with you. Thank you for coming. Christine, tell us
Hi.
about your business, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with both of you today. My name is Christine Page, and I am the owner of Bliss Medical Hair Replacement Center here in Providence, Rhode Island. And we are formerly Bliss Salon Incorporated and have pivoted and transitioned ever since COVID.
It's incredible. Christine had a very successful salon and has, as you say, pivoted to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And then Suzanne, tell us about Luna and Stella.
Thank you. I'm Suzanne Burnaby. I'm the owner of Luna and Stella Fine Jewelry. We design our own contemporary jewelry as well as sell antique and vintage jewelry, some of which was made in Rhode Island over 100 years ago. We sell direct-to-consumer through our website and have been doing so for 12 years. So in some ways, we were better set up for COVID than other businesses that didn't already have an established e-commerce business, except for one potentially fatal flaw, which is that we are a company run by two moms of young children. And when the schools closed in March, it was devastating. If it were not for the leadership of Governor Raimondo opening schools in September, I might have been among those 2 million women. So everything you just said resonates very deeply with me.
Thank you for saying that, Suzanne. By the way, something you all have in common is that you're moms, and some of you have really small kids, and so I know it's been especially difficult this past year. Okay, so let's kick off this discussion. We want to hear from you. I suppose I'll begin with a first question, just hoping to get us going. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you survived through the pandemic and what you learned and any transitions that you made in your business that you think will stick and will help you as you grow going forward. And we'll start with you, Christine.
Thank you. How I survived the pandemic, honestly, was the Goldman Sachs 10K program. I was selected for the program before COVID began, and when COVID started, our program was ending. We had about 2 classes left. So we had started in person, and the program really put me in a place to understand my business and grow my business, which is the main objective. When we got there, we talked about growth opportunities and how to grow our business. And the pandemic, as much as it was a bad thing, it really gave me the opportunity to really live out what they taught us, which was to work on our business instead of in our business at the same time. So it really gave me the opportunity to apply quickly what I had just learned and really just like make it happen. One of the goals in the class was to come up with a growth plan for a year to 5 years out, but my growth plan was literally for like 2 weeks out. And it was just a great opportunity to just sit down and focus, because as a single mom and as a business owner, you're just very busy all the time. So to learn all those techniques and then actually have the opportunity to sit down and implement them is what gave me the ability to feel comfortable and feel safe that I would make it through the pandemic. I have 2 kids. I would like to say 2 grown men because they are 21 and 18 years old. And honestly, their spirit and their courage really got me through the pandemic at first. The first couple of days, I can admit I cried like a baby because I just felt like my business was gone, you know, like how can I service people 6 feet away? How can I do hair? How can I do what I've been doing every day, you know? So my kids just convinced me that everything was going to be okay. And I reached out to our leaders at the Goldman Sachs program, and they immediately got us on a Zoom call and said, hey guys, you know, really think about how you're going to pivot your business and survive right now. And I got in my car that night and decided I needed to do something different.
Wow. And
Yeah.
God, good for you.
And
you
I
changed
drove
the whole
around
world.
until I found the perfect place, because I know location, location, location means everything. So I drove around until I found the perfect place that I wanted, that I thought would really work for the pivot of my business, which is honestly something I was already doing, but on a very small scale. But I wanted to make this like what I did going forward. So I got in my car and found that place, and you know, I just have to say God's timing is unbelievable, because I thought I was going to just call my broker the next morning and say, hey, you know, call and figure this out for me. But the next morning, my son had a doctor's appointment at that very building, and I had no idea until I put the address in the GPS and just pulled in the parking lot. I said, I was here last night. Yeah, it's an amazing story, but that's the beginning of how I started to get through the pandemic. And then I decided to get healthy and stay safe, because I said, if this thing comes my way, it's going to have to make a U-turn and go somewhere else. So I just really started to focus on me and my business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a story of strength.
Yeah.
That is a story of strength. Anyone else?
We were hit very early because of the cruise ship market. It was going to be our best year selling. We had orders lined up for our sonar systems to be installed in quite a few new builds, as well as refits. And overnight, really before mid-March, they had already knew that it was slowed down. And so we had to make up 40% or more of our sales. And at the same time, from March to May, or even later on some of them, the shipyards all over the world that we had projects already in process, in some of the countries, they completely stopped. And then slowly, after about 3 or 4 months, the ones that weren't bankrupt or bought by other companies started to come back a bit. And I'd say the PPP program really, and the EIDL really helped us during those few slow months, that we were able to keep our staff employed, which we were just so thankful for. Overnight in March, we moved to a work-from-home process, except for production and obviously incoming shipping and outgoing. Everything else got moved off-site into homes for the first few months, and which our software engineers love and never want to go back to the old model. So we've learned a lot of interesting things. Now in year 2, it's the global supply chain is the most challenging. You know, we have been shipping even to some cruise ships. We've been selling and shipping, not like we would have expected, but to get parts. We're hurt as much as the automotive industry. And we don't see an end to this. So it takes more capital in order to purchase the inventory and order it 25 weeks ahead of time and be able to keep things so that we can get our supplies all over the world, since we sell globally. And obviously the international travel died. We were supposed to have, I think, about 17 or 18 of our dealers were sending their service technicians right on March 16th. For 3 days to Rhode Island. We entertain them out on Narragansett Bay. They have a intensive training class. It canceled that week. And so we've had to adapt to training online to make sure that our service people know what to do. So, so costs to business have gone up all around, but, but we're enthusiastic and really going forward.
We're hearing that from so many businesses, by the way, the supply chain disruptions. And there's short-term things we can do and then long-term. A lot of what we need to do is to reshore some of that. So some of the supply is made again in America, which is something we're working on. How big of a barrier is access to capital for you guys? And how, as we're thinking about implementing the Biden-Harris agenda to Build Back Better, how important is that, and how should we think about that to make sure that your businesses get capital? Minnie, you want to hop in?
Yes, so we started our business in 2015. I was working as a chef in California, and I decided I was going to start a business. And so I quit my job and moved back home to Rhode Island, packed up my family, my young daughter. And
There's a lot of courage around this table.
I basically did everything they said not to do. So we started at Hope in Maine, which is one of the main reasons why I moved to Rhode Island to start my business.
That's interesting.
Because I was in California and I read that they were building a $3.5 million kitchen. I've worked as a chef in the food industry for a long time, and I knew that that was a lot of money and that they're making a big investment, and I wanted to run. So we were able to start our business because there was an incubator. Now, along with having the space and the commercial kitchen, they provided us with a lot of expertise and a sense of community. Within 6 months, we started making our kimchi there, selling it jar by jar at the farmer's market. Within 6 months, I knew right away I needed to have my own space in order to scale, because to be a CPG food business, you have to sell a lot of kimchi or a lot of your product, and that's what I hope to do. First thing about childcare, I knew I wanted to really dedicate myself to the business, and I had my daughter was 18 months old at the time. She's now 7, and I put her daycare on my credit card, which they say, don't do that. I also cashed out my 401k. They said, don't do that. But I was investing in myself. And so, yeah, that's how I financed my business, through paying for childcare so that I could work on my plan and my growth. So we raised a little bit of money through friends and family initially to get into Lorraine Mill, our kitchen, our first real kitchen, aside from Hope in Maine. And then I am also did the 10,000 small business program. I think a number of us here did that. And I met, I learned so much. I completely, what you said, Christine, really resonates. It really gave me the confidence, the foundation, especially going through this pandemic as a mom, as a business owner, as feeling responsible for my employees and my community. If I hadn't had that foundation, I wouldn't be in business today. Just for start, the education is, completely free. All you do is invest your time, and the connections in this small, community has been just integral. But back to what I was saying is that I had a plan. I made my plan, and as soon as I got out of there, I implemented it. I got an SBA loan to double our production space and our capacity. And we're still growing, and in fact, kimchi sales have gone up during the pandemic because people want the healthy benefits of the product and they're shopping at home. We, lost all of our food service channel, and luckily, because of my knowledge of Goldman Sachs, I'd kind of diversified a little bit. We were actually, over the years, have become very good at manufacturing, that we started a co-manufacturing channel as well. So I would say during the pandemic, the thing that helped me survive was just going to work when I could. But the childcare piece is every morning, we wake up with a question mark. Am I going to work today? What's happening? And so that's been challenging. So I think really addressing that childcare piece and there's like a fourth wall where we have to, this myth that we have to separate our work life and our professional life. And people are always asking, how do you separate work life and home life? And I say, I don't, and I don't want to. That's not why I started this family business. What my family life informs my business and how we treat our, team and our partners. And my business life has informed our family life. For example, when it was time to go back to school, I looked at the plan that the school presented, and I thought, this is good. And the only reason why I knew that was good is because I had to present my own plan for my own business.
So I want to just add something. So we have the American Rescue Plan, which has been passed. We are now working on the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan. The American Jobs Plan has been popularly thought of, I think rightly, as an infrastructure plan. But in Washington, D.C., things that may be obvious are sometimes not as obvious and then become the subject of a lot of debate. One of the subjects of debate is this point about whether childcare is infrastructure. You each are running very successful, innovative businesses with a variety of talents, skill sets, and background in terms of the work and the perspective that you have brought to your businesses. I'd like to hear from each of you as though you are talking to the people in Washington, D.C., to explain why childcare is part of infrastructure. And let me just tell you the way I define infrastructure. One of my definitions is the things you just need to get where you need to go. So let's talk about why childcare is a part of that. For example, it is our intention to say that no working family should pay more than 7% of their income in childcare. So you don't have to put it on your credit card. It is our point to talk about universal pre-K, also for a number of reasons, but in particular also understanding that our youngest children, if they can benefit from an educational program at that age, not only daycare, they are much more likely to succeed in their academic life through high school and beyond. So can each of you speak for a moment as though you are speaking to the people in Washington, D.C., and explain to them why an issue like childcare, or how an issue like childcare relates to your ability to contribute to America's economy and to grow it and run a business?
I can take that.
Okay.
I think that for too long, childcare has been viewed as a women's issue. And I think that COVID has made it clear that this is a societal issue and a business imperative. I literally would not have a business if I didn't have childcare. I wouldn't have employees because my entire company is is mothers of young children. And we just can't be left on our own to figure this out. We really need a comprehensive plan for our children's future starting, at birth, really. And that's our collective responsibility. It shouldn't just be that every family has to, figure this out on their own. And I think if we do that, our country will benefit, in so many ways. Long into the future if we really view our children as our collective responsibility and not our individual responsibility.
Yes, the children of the community are the children of the community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I could jump in on this. I've been in the salon business for over 25 years, and when my kids were younger, I can't imagine trying to do this without childcare. And there were some times I didn't have childcare, so my kids were right there in the salon with me, It's like, okay, you can fold some towels, you can start getting your little entrepreneur skills right now, and sweep, and, and that type of thing. So it was definitely very important because it's as if you're asking folks to put their job before their kids, and, that doesn't work. It really doesn't work. So we really do need childcare for our kids. I even thought of making a salon with a daycare center in it in order to attract more women to be able to work. Because sometimes salon hours could be a little tricky. You think you're doing one thing, next thing you know, that color takes a couple extra hours, highlights this, that, and the other. So, and I know of other people in my industry, other salons that are doing that right now in California that are like totally renovating their salon to include a daycare for reasons like that.
Yeah.
It's an excellent idea.
So this is something you may not know about me, Secretary Raimondo, is I had a business in the 90s when my children were tiny, and the business didn't fail, but I failed because I couldn't cope in the end with 2 small children and a business that was growing so fast that I knew where the business needed to go, and I knew what my kids, and my kid, one was in 1st grade and one was in daycare, but I was sort of running back and forth. There'd be cheesecakes in the oven in my commercial kitchen in Newport, and I'd have to run to Middletown to get my son and then run back before the cheesecakes burnt. And then in I think towards Christmas one year, they got the flu, and I stayed home all day looking after them, and then getting the flu myself, going back to the kitchen and working all night. And then getting to Christmas Day, and I thought, this is unsustainable for the family or for everybody. My husband was working full-time for a bank, and he couldn't, so fast forward, I didn't start my business, and I'm not successful now. I'm successful now because my son was in high school when I started. He was almost driving. So I lost sort of 20 years or 15 years in the middle. Partly by choice, because I just thought this is not sustainable. And I did other things for a while, but I didn't have another business until basically my youngest was driving. And I could take the time.
And that gets back to the point that you made, that we should not be asking women to put their jobs before their children.
Right.
It's a false choice.
It's a false choice, yeah.
It's a false choice, which we should call is exactly that, a false choice.
I think that, go ahead.
You want to finish your
No,
thing?
we're just related. I think for the folks in Washington, becoming a parent is actually, I think for a lot of women, the catalyst for starting a business. I had a corporate career before I started my company, and part of why I started a business was because I couldn't see role models with the type of lifestyle that I wanted, and I really wanted to have some control over my time. And I think probably for all of us naively, like Jennifer was just saying, it maybe doesn't work out exactly how you think it will, but at least as a small business owner, you have some control over your time. But I think similar to when the healthcare plan passed, it really provided an opening for entrepreneurs to start companies, because there's no longer this fear that if you start a business, you're going to be uninsured. Childcare is really a very similar issue. It's if you're confident that your children will be cared for and you have access to health care, it really removes a lot of the barriers for people to start a company. So I think if those things were taken care of, you actually would see a huge amount of growth and development and new businesses being started by women.
That's really well done.
Yeah.
It literally is about removing a barrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you,
Yeah, in
Cheryl?
the early part of my career, as an engineer, it was always balancing. It was impossible in the suburbs at that time. There weren't even daycare centers around. You'd have to find an in-home a situation, and they were never as stable as you'd hope as you were working. So many times, if there were issues, I'd be working till 1 o'clock in the morning in an old warehouse, and and this happened over and over. And then as daycares came about, I really thought it would advance more, and by now well, all things related to women I thought would be a little easier. But I look at my staff, and I'd say half of them with their children last March, having to suddenly balance and work from home. We even moved for one staff, our electrical engineer, we had to move some of the equipment for him to do some testing at home while he's balancing two kids that he was taking care of. His wife had a position where she couldn't share those responsibilities for most of the time. And I've seen the struggles. It's a little different. It's much better than it was when I first started out, but it's not where it should be. And hearing about the Family Act, when you realize it's not a cost to the society, it's a cost not to do it.
Yeah.
And investing in the families and the daycare and taking care of elderly parents, boy,
Yes.
I could have used that. And because you're trying to balance, and it does put money right back into the economy in such a positive manner.
Absolutely right. And that is in the American Jobs Plan, a very significant, $400 billion going to caregiving for the elderly and for those with disabilities for that very reason. Because again, it forces people to make what should be thought of as a false choice.
And
Yeah.
most of the people who in that business
Are women.
are women.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So people who do home care for our elderly moms and dads are predominantly women of color, and barely making a livable wage. So in the $400 billion will be to shore up that system of home care and make sure that these women make a livable wage.
And the interesting thing on your point, if you think about the cycle of small business owners who are women, many small business owners who are women are running daycare centers
It's true.
and running home care centers. And so you take it full circle. And then we should always think about also then, are we paying people the value of their work, which is a related and very important point. But Minnie, did you want anything?
Yeah, I would just say, one of the key things is to make sure that the childcare is affordable.
Yes.
It obviously is available to people that can afford it. It is, I think, the cost of it is astronomical for good quality care. I would say to the people who are making these decisions in Washington, if you want the 2 million women to come back into the workforce, if they want to, if you want female-owned businesses to grow and proliferate and innovate, like you said, then there's no question not to support childcare. And it doesn't just impact women, it impacts my husband, my
Absolutely
family,
right.
my neighbors, and my employees. So it's not, like you said, it's not just a women's issue, it's a American
society.
issue, and I'm so glad that it's finally being addressed. Thank you.
And
Thank
it's
you.
an economic issue. I have been doing a lot of outreach, and people say, well, you're the Commerce Secretary. Why are you talking about the care economy or childcare? This is about the economy. This is about productivity. This is about unleashing the amazing entrepreneurial talent of women like you so you can be productive in the economy. I have a question for each of you. So some of you I know receive PPP loans and others SBA loans. And so, we are working hard to make sure the President's Jobs Plan becomes law and is fully funded. And then once that happens, we'll have to implement it. We will have to, provide the grants to women and minority-owned businesses, provide the small business loans. And I know from being a governor, sometimes that's hard. Like, we say, we have these great programs, we have this, money available, and we hear from people in the community, I don't know where to get it, I don't know if it applies to me. So maybe you could just offer us some advice, and I think we have just a few minutes left, but offer us some advice. How do we make it easier to access these funds? How do we make sure it gets to folks?
Can I
Please.
jump in on this?
Please.
Okay. And I did want to bring it back, and it kind of ties this in. I wanted to talk about the access to capital question. For me, I didn't have access to capital. I can be just honest with you. I didn't have good credit. I'm just taking care of my kids, and I just, my capital was my clients and word of mouth, the referral. And I think the beginning of having a business, that first year is such a struggle. It's really hard to get funding and to have capital. And it's as if no one takes you serious. And that first year is the toughest year. They say if you can survive the first year, you can do anything. The first year, a couple times, I couldn't make the rent, to be honest with you, you know? And I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't get a loan. So I called my pastor, not to ask him for a loan, but to say, like, what do I do? And I remember him laughing a little bit on the phone, and I was just like, what's so funny? I had to ask him, like, what's so funny? And he said, well, you know, in life sometimes you have to go through things in order to be able to understand it, in order to help someone else who might be in that position at a later time. And it brought me to a place of clarity where I was able to just go talk to my landlord and say, hey, this is what it is, and be able to work something out. But having access to capital was a real struggle. I have student loans, and, you know, I'm just a single mom trying to make it. You know, I have two kids' fathers. They're great guys. They do what they can to take care of the kids. But it was just like, how do I keep this business going? That's been my dream all this time. And what happened for me was through word of mouth and my clients, my credit card processing company noticed that I was making money, you know. So they reached out to me and said, hey, we would like to offer you working capital. And that's how I was able to keep my business going until I was able to establish good enough credit, you know, to reach out to other sources like the SBA and stuff like that. But it was just like ridiculous trying to get money. It's almost as if everybody just wants you to fail. And if you can't struggle hard enough, you're just not going to make it. And a lot of businesses don't make it past the first year. A lot of people are passionate. But at that point, you know, you're just getting into it, you're confused, you're not really sure what to do, how to do things, you got to figure it out along the way. And money was just a real issue for me. But I was able to figure it out, and I've had my current business for 7 years now.
Good for you. Any other? Jen?
I would say access to capital has not been an issue for me in terms of if you have good credit. If you have a relationship with a bank, if you have a bank, you know, if you can find a banker that you can talk to. But to get to that point from where you were, there's a gap. Like, I was lucky enough, we mortgaged our house basically to open the business, which was a huge risk. And it wasn't, you know, we just did it blind faith, really. When we opened the bakery, though, we just maxed out our credit cards. I then just paid it all back as quickly as possible. I didn't go and get a loan, but I think I could have. As far as these programs, though, the PPP and the SBA program, the restaurant revitalization program that's just come out, I have found the information coming to me from all different sources, from my accountant, from the newspapers, and also the POS systems that we all use now. Like, I'm using Square, but there's Toast and Clover and all of those big companies. They're informing you also, and they're helping tremendously. You can apply for the PPP through your Square account or your Clover account, as far as I know, certainly Square, and they will take your sales. And the same with the Restaurant Revitalization Act, which, thank you very much, I just applied for again. These programs have been fantastic. PPP saved my business, but it also saved my and my employees' mental health all the way through the winter. Because last year, when we got the PPP, it ran out by the time we got into sort of midsummer. We were staying alive as a restaurant but we need to more than stay alive to get through the following winter. So when the second round of PPP was coming, it was really honestly what saved 28 jobs. And I don't know if I could have done it, because I might have been able to borrow money, but I don't know if I could have done it, because the margins in the restaurant industry are not enough for me to bury my business at my age. When would I ever pay it back, you know? So the government really has stepped in, but I think that I think the information is out there.
That's good to hear.
I really do.
But do on the restaurant revitalization piece, help us get the word out. So many of our restaurants were not able to survive or just are barely hanging on, which is why we specifically had a carve out for restaurants distinct from the PPP at this phase.
Right.
And it extends through the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure, because it also is a grant, not just a loan.
Right.
And it's a way to bypass the bank and go
Yeah.
to the direct, like Square and the other mechanisms that are available. So please do help us get the word out about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's essential, I think, because the restrictions are beginning to be lifted.
Yeah.
But I think for restaurants, especially in the inner cities, that
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
danger is still going to continue for the rest of the year, and will
That's
probably
right.
be more lockdowns, and, yeah.
Well, hopefully not.
Suzanne, we'll give you the last word.
Okay, I was just going to say on we also had got a small PPP loan. We actually didn't qualify for the second round because the timing of the pandemic came at the end of the first quarter. And we had, an absolutely disastrous March, but January and February were relatively okay. So I think it makes sense that the PPP was prioritized for the companies that, had the biggest impact, more than 25% reduction in sales. But 25% reduction in sales for a small business is really significant. And, some of those companies may not have made it through it all. So even though, we didn't qualify, again, we're facing so many headwinds still. So I think, maybe looking at what, slightly broadening the criteria for access to capital. But as a business owner, the thing in the e-commerce space that I'm really looking for is a level playing field in terms of the tech companies that sort of own the rails of the internet. If someone asked me if they were to hand me money, what I would spend it on, in the e-commerce space, there's only two places to spend money, and that's going to Google and Facebook. And what I would really like is for those companies to play fair, pay their share of tax, and really give small businesses opportunities to succeed.
I wish we could make a video of you and take it back to Washington, because.
There's a video I just
Right?
know there has to be
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly, fair enough, somewhere here there
I
is a
can give you,
video.
I can give you some
Yeah.
concrete examples if you would like. if
Yeah,
you want to hear.
but what you said, I mean, this is what the president says.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Level the playing field, pay your fair share.
yeah.
And you're not looking for a handout. You're
Not
looking
looking
for
for a
a
handout.
chance to compete.
Correct.
So I think that was
Correct.
beautifully said.
May I add about how I used the PPP? I didn't get to add that in, how the PPP benefited me. I was able to start the next business, which is Bliss Medical Hair Replacement Center, where our focus is cranial prosthetics, where we make wigs for people that have hair loss due to medical reasons, and their insurance, their health insurance pays for it. So we customize hair pieces, wigs, extensions. They pretty much would come to us to cut their hair off before treatment, and then I actually use their hair to create the cranial prosthetic, use their natural hair along the hairline and along the part, and I actually make it according to their head shape and their head measurements. And we have our own doctor's office suite right across from Rhode Island Hospital. So we're in a building with other specialists, plastic surgeon, foot specialist, where my son's doctor's appointment was. And we're already taking virtual clients and virtual appointments. So technology is really helping us right now, because we meet with everybody for a virtual consultation before they're able to come in. And we go over their insurance, make sure their insurance will cover their cranial prosthetic. If not, they could pay out of pocket, or if they just needed a wig. So it keeps us 6 feet away from people. We can still service people across the country. They can meet with us virtually. We show them how to make their head measurements, send us in the mold of their head shape, make their wig, and ship it out to them. So the PPP, like all these loans that I now have access to, have really put me on a whole nother level with my business, and put us in a great place to scale.
Thank you. So the PPP allowed you to
Oh,
transition
yeah, I got
the whole
access
business.
now.
You made it. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. I think I can speak for both of us in saying that we could sit here all day and talk about this and learn from you, but you have to get back to running your businesses. I will simply say thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking it out last year.
Yeah.
You know, I know it was tough. It still is tough. Every day was a grind. And I'm sitting here being so impressed by your stamina and resourcefulness and entrepreneurial spirit, and really inspired by it. You know, it's motivating me to go get back to work and see if we can, you know, push some of, get the jobs package passed, get the family package passed, and then implement it. And what I've heard today is there are two things. There's breaking down barriers, barriers of access to capital, barriers of access to training, barriers of not having enough health care or child care or home care. And we need to do that to unleash the productivity of small businesses and women, by the way, half of the economy. Thank you very much. But then also providing support. So you said you moved here because of Hope in Maine, which is a food incubator. We're sitting here in an incubator. So, you know, sometimes you need a space to work, a community of entrepreneurs. And that, we need to deliver on all of that if we are really going to stand the economy back up in a way that is fairer, more equitable, and more productive.
And that program, the 10,000.
Yeah, you was good,
The
it
Goldman
sounded like.
Sachs program, 10,000 small businesses, which we did, which was government-supported, a free program for all small business owners, is the kind of thing that just gave us all so much more confidence.
Confident,
Yeah,
technical
to get through
help.
this last
Yeah.
year without that, would have been much harder.
I'm so pleased you say that. I mean, obviously I was involved in bringing that to Rhode Island, but we should do more of that. Like, technical help for small businesses. Here's how you negotiate a contract. Here's how you run your business. Here's how you pivot your, whatever you said, work on your business, not in your business. And I'll go out on a limb and say I think, you know, women and first-time business owners and minority-owned businesses need that even more. So, okay, we have a long to-do list. We have to get to work. But I'm going to give the Vice President the last word. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, each of you. You are inspiring many people that you may not meet, but will hear your stories and your courage and your commitment, your drive, your ambition, your fabulous ambition. And the reason that I am here is to highlight the work that you all have been doing. It is to carry your stories as the story of America's economy and the potential of America's economy. You know, I've come up with this phrase I've been using a lot, which is, you know, American aspiration. Our ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been. And in the midst of then this pandemic and all that it created in terms of loss and pain, there are certain things that should come out of that are about giving us a sense of optimism, about getting through that and then being even better. You know, some people talk about going back to normal. Normal was okay. It wasn't so great for a lot of people, however. Let's do better. Let's do better. And part of doing better is we must support our small businesses and see you and what it means for you to do what you do each day. And make sure that within the infrastructure that keeps you going, that keeps you up and running, that we are supporting that with policy and with support that is about resources. And so that is the design behind the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan. But the way that we're going to be most effective is for everyone, in particular policymakers and legislators, to be able to really see who is America's small business. How does it actually work? What are the engines that drive it beyond the personal courage and ambition and creativity of the individuals? What are the structures that must be in place to make it work? And so that's why we've been here today, to hear your stories, to carry your stories, to take them back. And also we're here to applaud you for all that you've done with great sacrifice. and fortitude. So thank you all very much for this time and all that you do. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll take a couple of questions from the press.
Madam Vice President, Majority Leader McConnell today said that 100% of his focus would be on stopping the administration's agenda. How does that impact your desire as an administration to still try to work with Republicans, and does it increase the potential of ending the Senate filibuster and just abandoning the attempts to work with Republicans?
The President and I have been very clear, including his remarks in the chamber during the joint session of Congress, that we will continue to attempt to work on the most pressing issues facing the American people in a bipartisan manner, which is why we have been holding meetings in the Oval Office with bipartisan members of the United States Congress. We intend to continue that. We are sincere and serious about what the potential to actually get something done together. We believe it's possible, and we're not going to give up on that until it becomes evident that it's not possible.
What role do you intend to play just with outreach on Capitol Hill, as the administration tries to move this forward? I know a lot of the economic aides are having meetings, you, Commerce Secretary Raimondo, are having meetings, but what role do you plan to play as a former senator?
Well, as Vice President of the United States, I will continue to play the role I've been playing, which is meeting with senators, meeting with members on the House side, meeting with our policy groups, meeting with folks who are on the ground, actually those folks who will be directly impacted by our work, to get feedback and to also share with them what we have done already that will assist them, such as we talked about the restaurant revitalization funds and the PPP, things of that nature. So I will continue to do that work.
Two quick news of the day ones, Madam Vice President, Madam Secretary. You said yesterday in a speech, quote, "We must respond to the situation in El Salvador and the government there is stripping away at the independence of that country's judiciary." You're obviously working a lot on root causes of immigration in Central America and Mexico. What kind of specific response are you hoping for from this administration? And can you tell us any more about your plans to go to that region?
Sure. On the topic of El Salvador, we are still assessing our options, but there is no question that when I look at the challenges that come from the Northern Triangle, we have to take El Salvador into account. But as it relates to what's happened in terms of their court, we are still assessing what they're going to do. In terms of my travels, currently the plan is for me to travel to Mexico and Guatemala June 7th and 8th. And I'm very much looking forward to that trip. As you know, it will come after a variety of work that we've been doing thus far, which has included now my second direct conversation with the President of Guatemala. I'm going to be talking with the President of Mexico again this week. This will be the second conversation I'll have with him. I have convened members of our cabinet, including this secretary, who has agreed to convene a virtual trade mission to the region. We have the Secretary of Agriculture, who has stepped up to do work as it relates to the challenges that that region faces because of extreme climate conditions, which have resulted in a number of tragedies, including drought. And also we've convened some of America's best foundations to renew their interest in that area and also increase their involvement in the area. So, and I have been talking with CEOs about a component that I believe could be very beneficial in terms of our initiative around private investment in that region. But again, the speech that I gave, you'll know that I also am taking into account the challenges that have long existed and continue to exist around corruption in the region and the challenges that that creates in terms of a return on the investment of the work that we put into that region. If this issue of addressing the challenges of the Northern Triangle were easy, it would have been solved a long time ago. It will not, the work we are doing will not evidence itself overnight. It's going to require a consistent and long-term strategy and commitment, which I'm prepared to follow through on.
On the Facebook decision today regarding former President Trump, the group that, what are they calling it? The Oversight Board saying they have 6 months to figure out a more just response to removing the former president. Should
You know,
Facebook remove him permanently?
I heard about their decision. I have, I want to understand a little bit better how they are thinking about this. I'm not very clear on that. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Be well.